Well, hello and welcome back to Teal House Farm. We have some work to do. A friend of mine called me and said that they had gotten a bunch of the meat pieces from when they had a cow process. This is a huge bag. I would guess this bag is close to 50 pounds. These are, the meat and fat pieces. So this isn't all pure fat. Obviously, we got some work to do. It's still got meat mixed in, so we need to separate out the fat because we're going to make tallow. This is a big project. It's going to take a while. Today's Thursday, and I'm going to start it on Thursday, and I'm actually going to finish it tomorrow with my sister-in-law. But we're going to go through the process with you in case you ever wanted to see how this is done. And also you can see how much we actually get from what is pretty close to 50 pounds of leftovers from the butcher. How much tallow are we actually going to get? Are we just going to get like one jar? Or are we going to get a whole bunch? So we'll kind of learn that together. I've rendered tallow before, but never from such a large quantity of leftover product. I've just done it with small amounts. So I'm really curious how much we're going to get. This has been sitting in my freezer though. They gave me this bag probably a month ago, and I just haven't had time to deal with it because it is a big project. And it's one I kind of wanted a second pair of hands with, which is why sister-in-law is going to help me finish at the end, and then we're going to split the difference. So this bag is going to sit out for about 30 minutes. I'm just going to let it soften enough that I can start chopping off the fat pieces, and then I'm going to rebag the meat pieces and actually freeze those. These meat pieces aren't excellent meat pieces. These are your odds and ends, but they'll be fine for like adding to a stir fry and stuff, so no reason to throw them away. So anyway, we're just going to come back in about 30 minutes and get to work. Getting started, I've got just a couple tablespoons of water on the bottom of my roaster, and I'm going to use this instead of a large pot or a crock pot. Definitely not going to fit all this in a crock pot. And we're going to put the roaster on as low as it goes, which is 150. But that's why I put the water on the bottom here, because really, from what I've read, you want to do more like 130 to 140, and I really want to make sure it doesn't scorch on the bottom as it starts to melt. So we're going to stir it a lot. This is called the wet method with just a little bit of water. We are going to render it more than once. The second time we're going to do the dry method, so we will not be adding any water, so we do not have to worry about the water causing rancidity issues later because we'll have plenty of time to evaporate, but this is going to help prevent any chance of scorching. We have a lot of cutting and work to do. I'm going to go ahead and plug this in, and we're just going to be adding chunks in batches. Some people send their chunks through the food processor to make them even smaller. I'm not going to do that today. I'm just going to cut small pieces. I started the roaster on as low as it'll go, which is 150, and then I just kept adding batches of the chopped up fat, and I kind of pulled out pieces of meat as I came along, and I put the meat in separate Ziploc bags to freeze for later because no reason to waste it, right? It did take quite a lot of time. This is a lot of fat, and I actually had too much for the roasting oven, so I'll show you what I did with that in a minute. So this turned out to be a really big project. I already knew it was a big project, but man, it became a really big project. So just kept putting loads in until it was so full that I needed to find a different way. There's the bag. I used that bag that night to actually make some French dip sandwiches. It was delish. Got that full. It's on 150, and we're trying to stir it intermittently, and I ended up filling up the roasting pan in the oven too, and a crock pot. So the roasting pan in the oven I did on 250, and that was too hot because what ended up happening is a lot of the meat kind of caramelized and didn't melt down. So there was my error. Don't do it that way. We now know that's not the best way to do it. I pulled whatever cooked meat I could off of that, and then I drained off the fat that did liquefy, and the rest I just kind of chucked. I wasn't quite sure what to do with it. There's what was in the crock pot. I didn't have a full crock pot, so that's just what was left that melted down, and I went ahead and strained that through a strainer as well. And then all of that grease, I've poured it back into just separate bowls and containers and set it on the counter until it solidified, and then I popped them out of the containers into this roasting pan. The lard in the roaster took forever, and I ended up having to take it out and run it through the food processor to speed it up a bit. We are like 12 hours into this. The crock pot's done, the oven one was been done for quite a while. It drained, hardening off the lard, popping it into this roasting pan, so it's just save it for tomorrow to do the next step. But the one in the roaster, it barely did anything the first, like, I don't know, 6 or 7 hours. I had it on 150, right? We talked about temperature. I just think that temperature, with the amount that was in there, it just was not transferring through very well, and it was just going incredibly slow, but I also don't want to scorch it, so I didn't want to just yank the temperature up and scorch the bottom. That's the other fear. And so what I decided to do is go ahead and do the food processor part, and it's going a lot faster now. So word to the wise, don't skip that part, even though it is an absolute pain to clean the food processor when it's got grease in it, because I don't have a dishwasher. I do it all by hand, and those nooks and crannies are no joke. But now that I've done that, it's been like 2 hours of that, it's almost done. And so I'm going to give it like another hour, still on low. I turned it up to 200, so it's still pretty low, melting tons faster. So I should have done that at the beginning. But we should be done here with that soon, and then we'll drain off all the grease through that first strainer strain, harden it off, and then in the morning we'll show you what's up to do the second render and get it ready for storage. So we've ended up with what's basically 3 giant frisbees of rendered down fat. We're not quite, pure tallow yet. We still have stuff on them. I have one more. There's 3 in here. I actually have one more over there that I still got to kick out of the bowl it's sitting in. But you can see, get my shadow out of the way, there's a lot of just gristle, I guess that is, stuff on the bottom. Set it all on the bottom as it cooled off. So we're going to scrape this off, and then we're going to cut these back down to small cubes and put in the crock pot to melt down again. And then we're going to strain all of this through cheesecloth and get it ready for storage. I have absolutely no idea if there's an actual technique for this part. My technique is just to scrape it with a knife. The brown stuff, whatever, I really don't know what you call it. I think it's called gristle. It's all settled on the bottom. You don't lose very much scraping it off. It's almost all gone here on this puck, frisbee, whatever you want to call it. So I feel like this is the easiest way to do it. Just give it a nice scrape. It's not going to be absolutely perfect, but it's going to be pretty darn close, and the cheesecloth should take care of anything that we didn't quite get second time around here. There, look how nice that looks. Let's chop it down to size and get it in the crock pot. I had a bit more than anticipated, and I was a little worried because we're traveling. If I started it off in the crock pot, it's just going to be a little too stuffed. So I put it in this roasting pan, and then we'll probably use a electric roasting oven or this pan itself to melt it back down once we get to my sister-in-law's house. But let's get all the kids up and ready for the day, get packed, and get out of here. We have arrived. This is my sister-in-law, Jess, who is also an avid canner and food preservationist. So we're just put we decided just to keep it in the pan. It's on super low on the stove, and we're just going to start melting it before we turn it up. Sam is hanging out with his brother, and cousins are all over the place hanging out and playing. So we're just going to get this melted down so we can get it put away to be preserved. We put the roaster on top of the stove and just turned both burners on low and just took turns kind of intermittently stirring it. It took about an hour to get it melted all the way back down. The kids enjoyed playing. The little guys just kind of wandered around the house. The bigger kids played some board games. They did go outside for a little bit too, but it is super cold, so it did not last too long. But it is always fun to see cousins. Here's kind of the progression. This is probably about 20 minutes in, and then about 45 minutes in, and then finally about an hour in, it's all the way melted down and we're ready to strain it. So for straining, we're gonna go ahead and need some cheesecloth. We wanna make sure we get every single little bit of grit and gristle and whatever's left. So we've got a bowl to catch it, a regular strainer, and then gonna line that with multiple layers of cheesecloth. And we're just going to do this in batches to make sure it doesn't backflow into the strainer. And we have some pans that are lined with parchment paper. I don't know if the parchment paper is really necessary, but we wanted the ability to pop them out of the pans to make it easier to cut. And this just seemed the least messy way to do it, so we didn't get grease all over the counters. We ended up needing 3 pans, and we used 2 shallower pans, and then decided we were having a little problem with the parchment paper popping out and then the grease leaking. So for the last pan, we went ahead and used a traditional 9x13 cake pan. We should have used this size pan from the beginning with the deeper sides. It worked a lot better and we didn't get any overflow. So we're gonna lay these out here to cool, and we're gonna serve up lunch to all the kids. It does not take a long time for it to start to cool. About 30 minutes later, it is ready to be cut. So the kids all line up, make some sandwiches, have some veggies and chips, and then they had a little picnic in the living room watching a show together. Of course, Georgie's too little for that. We had to keep her contained in a high chair. And then here we are. This is only about 30 or 40 minutes later. You can see it went pretty quick. Now it is still a little bit soft and just slightly warm, and I wanted it like that to make the cutting easier. Next time I do this, I think I will bring either a bench scraper or use a pizza roll cutter to make this easier, because the knife did kind of collect a lot of residue on it. Now we didn't waste that residue. We actually went ahead and just put it in a mason jar and used that up first, but it definitely was a little bit messy. I think either a pizza cutter or a bench scraper would be a neater tool to use. We're putting these on different cookie sheets and cake pans because we're going to put them in the freezer for just about 20 minutes because we want to store them in Ziploc bags, and we don't want them to all stick together when we put them in a bag. So by pre-freezing them, it's just like pre-freezing berries before putting them in a bag. They won't combine into a big huge mess. It actually did make quite a lot. We made 2 Ziploc bags and they were completely full. Of course, we labeled them so remember what this is later. And we're gonna load them in. And like I said, since they were nice and frozen, they didn't stick together and they stayed nice and separated in the freezer. And we're done.
Yeah.
Got 2 big bags.
Yes.
Jess says she wants to try making hand lotion.
Yes.
So if she comes with a good recipe, we'll share that all with you. I'm just planning on using it for cooking, but if she likes the hand lotion, I might try it. So anyway, thanks so much for watching. Thanks for helping.
Of course.
And we'll see you guys next time.
Bye.